Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Alrighty. Welcome back to the channel, back to another video. Hey, you guys, I'm glad you're here. We're doing a thing, right? We are doing the God is the Matchmaker, right? We're back to our we're talking about supernatural coming together of people. And I think what's important, y'all do forgive me for being slightly tardy for the party. I was trying to get my computer situated, and prayerfully we won't have as many issues this week as we had last week. If you're able to hear me though, would you just type somewhere in the comments and let me know that you can hear me? I do appreciate it if you would share this video. If you know anybody that is single, desirous of marriage, whether they have been divorced like me or they have never been married, just let me know that in the comments. And if you can hear me okay, that's one of the things. I'm trying to find my phone. I had it, but I can't find it now. Oh, well, guess I don't need it. Okay, very good. So we started off, and I can't show the book because some platforms don't like when you show stuff and they're like, nope, that was a bad thing. So let me not do it. We started off thank you very much, Instagram, for letting me know. We started off a couple weeks ago talking about this particular book and how I came to find this book. I was, have been over the last 15 years, it's getting ready to be 16 years, separated and divorced. Haven't dated, desired to date, desired to find a person to love and to marry and all that. And it just never worked out. But I have been, raising my children, doing all those types of things. And it just has never been in the cards for me at this point, or it hadn't been up to this point. And so I accepted it. I accepted what it was for what it was. And I don't want to say I was content, because that is not the truth. The truth is, every time I would see a man, and I'm just being honest because I can be, some people won't be honest about what they were going through, but I would be like, God, is it him? God, is it him? God, is it him? God, is that the one? Because I knew for sure that God had marriage for me, and it wouldn't be him, right? You would think it would be him, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't be him, and you're back on the wheel, right? It's like that mouse on the wheel, continually scrolling, running on the wheel, trying to get somewhere and never going anywhere. And that was my mindset in thinking about finding someone or having somebody find me. And so about 3-4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I ran up on a girl. She was doing a teaching, and very good. So am I, and we out here together. And I ran up on a teaching, and she introduced this book. And the book is called God is a Matchmaker by Derek Prince. And in my mindset of God is it him, God is it him, God is it him, because the Lord had given me a word. And the word of the Lord was, in short terms, I have marriage for you. And I kept thinking, is it him, God? Is it him, God? Is it him? I'd be at the grocery store. Maybe it's him. Because people be like, oh, you'll meet people anywhere. You meet people at the gas station. So I'm pumping gas, looking on aisle number 3, going, God, is he the one? And it just would continually bother my mind. It would not loose me if you can get that picture in your mind. It just would not loose me. It just kept holding my mind hostage because I couldn't let it go. So anyway, long story short, I ran up on this girl doing a teaching, and she shared this book. One of these books, this book was one of the ones that she recommended that we read, and I read it. And immediately when I read the book, it absolutely 100% put my mind at peace about marriage. It just did. Now, Shakima, how can your mind be at peace about marriage? Well, 2 things. I trust the Lord and the word that he gave me, so I have no questions about that. The second thing is, God has never lied to me once. I know people that have lied and people that continually lie, and some people I know still lie. So I know those people, but God is not the same. So I don't judge him based on how other people have treated me, respond to me, or anything of that nature. I just don't. So when I jumped in and I kept thinking, okay, God, what do you want me to do for 2025? And this was one of the books. The first thing that I do every beginning of the year, it starts in January, about the first week. It's called the 40 Days of Love. Now, I did not do that on TikTok. I didn't do it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. I should have done it. I go live every single night for 40 days, and we talk about love. We talk about how to renew your marriage. We talk about how to be the best you for your spouse. We talk about are you suited to marriage, how you are in your marriage. We take a marriage evaluation, and we just go through all of those things. And then the Lord said, the second thing I was supposed to do is God is a matchmaker, because I spent a lot of time with the married people, helping them to see or to ask the questions. Is this, am I doing for my spouse what they need? Remember what my ex-husband told me, you're not the right type of wife I need. And clearly that man knew what type of wife he needed. Now, I was fine for 18 years, but after those 18 years, when I started to have my own thoughts about things, I wasn't the right type after that. And I get it. It's perfectly fine. He needed a wife that he could tell what to do. And, hey, listen, it is what it is. So again, like the video, share, comment, subscribe, keep the chat going, be kind, be friendly, okay? Because we don't have to put anybody out. We really don't. And this is a good topic, y'all. It's something that needs to be talked about and needs to be discussed. So then we started the book study. The first week we talked about, let me see. The first week was The Voice of the Bride and the Bridegroom, where we talked about the fact that God created marriage. Marriage was an institution created by God between Adam and Eve, one man, one woman. You discuss or you debate whatever you want about what it is and what it ain't. I'm not here for that. What I'm telling you is what I believe. I think that's what the Lord wanted me to start with. Here's the question, because if you don't agree to what I'm about to say, you can just log off and just move on with life, and it'll be perfectly fine. We will not have no hard feelings. I either trust the Lord or I don't. Those are the only two options that I have. I either trust that he's God and he's going to fulfill every promise that he made to me, or I don't trust him at all, and I don't know why I'm following him. I'm just doing it so I could fit into the crowd, have somewhere to go on Sundays, or whatever the case is. So those are your options. For me, for Shakima, Joshua 24:15, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's the end of life. That is it. There are no second plans, no plan B, we will serve the Lord here. And so I have prided myself, is the wrong word. I've shaped and formed my life around the Lord and what he would say to me. And I spend time with God and he tells me. So in that first chapter where he talks about the voice of the bride and the bridegroom, and he's just talking about marriage. And it's a good thing. I know that there's a lot happening in 2025, 2024, 23, post all the things that happened in 2020 where people are not getting married. They just don't want to be married. They're like, hey, what's the need to get married when we doing all the things we could be doing right now and not have any commitment? I get it and I understand, but have you ever been to the hospital with your significant other and been able to make a decision and not be their spouse? You have never. Have you ever been to somebody's funeral and in the obituary it talks about their special friend? My mother was a special friend when the man she had been with for years and years, God knows 10, 20, I don't know how many years her and Chuck was together, but she was still his special friend at the bottom of the obituary because they didn't really want to leave her out because she was sitting in the room. Do you understand that being his special friend gives you no privileges, no rights, no anything? If the family, his next of kin says, or her next of kin says, you are not allowed to be here, doesn't matter how many years of your life you have given to somebody, you are not allowed. That's it, the end. They can actually have you taken away. And so because I don't ever want to experience that, I'm not going to be your special friend. We either in it or we ain't. You get to decide, and whatever it is whatever it is, and I'm okay with that. But if we're not going to be together, don't waste my time, because then there must be another, right? So that's what he spent the first chapter talking about. In the second chapter, and he briefly glances over this, where he talks about his first wife. Now, the author of this book, Derek Prince, has been married twice. He's now long since passed, right? But the book is still a good book. So he talks about his first wife, Lydia. Now, here's the thing. Going back to my question, do you trust the Lord or not? You have to have such a trusting relationship with the Lord as he did to absolutely believe that this woman who was his senior, I'm going to say at least by 15 years or so. He was in his early 30s. She was in middle age by the time they even met each other. But then they had gotten married. And you have to understand, she's in middle age. She doesn't have any of her own children, and she's not going to have yours either. So do you want children or do you not want children? Because if the Lord is calling you to marry this woman, then you're going to have to be okay with what she brings to the table. 9 children that were not her children, 9 girls that she took in because she felt the Lord telling her to do that. And he saw what she was doing and agreed that they could connect and that he would take on whatever she took on. Okay, very good. Now, tonight's chapter talks about his second wife, Ruth. So he does his due diligence in the second chapter and talks about his first marriage. Very good. She has her own separate book, but now we're going to talk about his second wife, Ruth. Now, here's the thing. And I'm going to roll over and just kind of go through a few things in my book. Now, what he said in here, it starts off, he talks about, this is right after his first wife died. He said that the pain of loneliness, the pain of the grief, all of that, of having to navigate that space on your own was brutal for him. It was all of the feelings, the emotions. When you spend 30 years of your life, and this is not even just from loss due to passing away, but maybe you've been with your spouse 30 years and all of a sudden they come home with a red Ferrari and a girlfriend that's 25. And you like, what? Wait a minute. How did this happen? Right? And so the dissolution of a relationship after so much time and so much effort and so much investment, you can't help but feel a type of way. Does that make sense? Like, I'm feeling something here. I don't exactly know what I'm feeling, or I can't put it into words to make you understand, but I'm feeling a thing. And he talked about the fact that even though he had people around him, he still felt very vulnerable. He felt very alone. He felt very like, where does my life go from here? She and I had such we had such a work from the Lord to do. And now all of their children, of course, were grown and moved off and married of their own, except one child who did not get married. She stayed single to take care of him and his wife in their elder years. And he talks about that very clearly and openly. But here I am now. What do I do now? Where does my life take me now? He's still a relatively young man. He's just in his 60s. I mean, men in their 60s now, honey, think they're in their 40s. They living longer and longer and longer. Now, what do? They really just hitting their stride for real. What do I do now that my life partner is no longer a part of this life? And so he talks about the fact that he had these 4 friends. They were all in Christian studies or, biblical scholars or whatever the case is. What does he call them? He said nationally known Bible teachers is what they were. All of them nationally known Bible teachers, 4 men, himself and 4 other friends. And they had committed to each other that they would discuss every big life decision, and they would come up with an agreement on how each of them would move in those life decisions. Now, here's my question to us. How many of us, and put in the chat, y'all, for real, let's be interactive here. How many of us have accountability in our life to the point that whatever decision I'm about to make, I'm going to talk to somebody else about it? Because the Bible does tell us that there is safety in a multitude of counsel, does it not? Now I have a major car repair that I need to make, and I need to pay for it in a specific type of way. But at this point, I don't really necessarily have the ready funds, but I do, but I don't, but I do. And so before I make a decision, I was going to text my sister, call my sister, and say, hey, listen, this is where I am. This is what I need to do. This is how I can make it happen. And this is my plan to make it all come together. But if not, if I don't do the repair, what I feel like I'm going to have to do is buy a new car. And I would rather spend the money on the repair than to have a car payment because I don't have one, right? These are the types of things that I'm talking about with my accountability. So we're all talking about accountability. Who has accountability to the point that you're going to discuss every single life decision with that person? I have that in my life. That is something that I put into practice many, many, many years ago, in part because I didn't want to make a crazy decision in the dating process. I had not been in the dating scene for 18 years. I had been with the same man from the time I was 16 years old till I was 33 years old. And I didn't want to make a decision. I didn't know what dating was like. I didn't know what going out was like. I didn't know if he wanted to, if touchy feely stuff started to happen. I didn't know a whole lot of stuff. And I was like, Lord, I better get some accountability in place now, because if I don't, I'm going to find myself in some trouble. Even to the point that I think it was probably on one of these social media platforms. I can't remember which one. But there was a guy, he had a friend, and they were in such good friendship, and he knew this guy was trying to walk the straight and narrow with the ladies. He was like, okay, buddy, here's what I'm going to do for you. If you need me because you find yourself in a temptation situation, call me and I'm coming over. Well, this guy found himself in a situation, and he called his friend and he trying to get him on the phone. He can't get the friend on the phone. Now he know the friend is at home. He's like, wait a minute now. Oh, dude ain't answering the phone. Something is up. He goes to dude's house. Hey, now, good to see you. And he's knocking on the door. He can't get him to come to the door. He's like, oh, let me go around to the bedroom side. So he goes around and he's still trying to get, he said, you know what? I'm not leaving this house till you open this door. So you may as well open the door. Well, long story short, he done messed up the groove. So he opens up the door. But you need friends like that in your life that are able to hold you accountable to what you ask them for. Now, I'm not saying everybody's asking for that level of accountability, but do you have anybody in your life that you can, if you need them to, call you on some things? And he talks about having that level of accountability with these 4 gentlemen. And he says, we had committed ourselves to share together in prayer, in counsel, and in fellowship. In this way, we sought to uphold and strengthen one another. So these are not the in your business buddies that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about getting people just in your business because all they want to do is be in your business. Those people you should probably be aware of. But I'm talking about people who agree to pray for you, who agree to hold you to a certain standard, who agree to say, well, I thought this is what you said, but now you're doing something different. Can you explain to me what's really going on here? Those types of people. And they're going to become important in just a minute. The reason I'm spending more time here is because they're going to become important in a second. So he talked about having that particular group of people after his wife died. And then he says, the comfort I received from my brothers in those hours of loneliness helped turn my sorrow into ultimate joy and victory. The day came after he's bereaved his first wife, when he could say with David, thou hast turned my mourning into dancing, thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness. Psalms 30:11. Then he talks about going to Jerusalem. Now he's getting ready to go to Jerusalem. He's like I said, a world-renowned Bible teacher, and of course they run in circles with other world-renowned Bible teachers and scholars and all these other people. And so he finds himself in Jerusalem at the celebration of this particular cardinal. And but he wanted to also be there to pray. Now, here's the thing, again, going back to, do you trust the Lord? Because the Bible tells us that my sheep know my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow. If you're trying to do dating this way, thank you, Holy Spirit, for helping me. If you're trying to do dating this way, the God way, and you can do it any type of way you want to. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what helped me put my mind to rest and at ease about where my husband was and is, because he still hasn't found me yet. I'm still very single. I haven't been on a date in 3 or 4 years. I don't know. I stopped counting a long time ago. It's been maybe 4 years now. I can't even remember. But anyway, do you really trust the Lord? So he finds himself in Jerusalem. He knew, because that's where him and his first wife were doing ministry, but he wasn't in Jerusalem at the time, but he knew he was going back there for ministry. You got to know the Lord so much, and you got to know what God said to you so well that you understand this is a temporary stop in what God had me doing. I'm getting ready to get back and get after what God has called me to do. I just don't know how it's all going to fold out, but I am here for it. So that's what he was doing. And so he goes to Jerusalem, and he was going to see this particular ministry where they have been supporting, his books and writings and different things. And in the book specific, there was a handwritten note from one of the ladies that worked for the particular organization. And she said, P.S., thank you so much for your ministry. It really means a lot to me. It's helped me through a lot of things. So he's just like, hey, I'm going to be right over here. There's no way that I could go to this particular place and not stop by just to say, hey, thank you so much for your handwritten note. I appreciate all the support and everything like that. So he finds his way there to the place, and he is inquiring about the lady that wrote the particular note. And the secretary says to him, yes, her name is Ruth, but she is not here. She is actually at home. She's on sick leave because she has a back issue. Well, wow, here's the thing, right? She's got a back issue. The Lord has given him a supernatural ministry to pray for people's backs. Look at God. Look at how God gonna work this thing out for him, right? So he's like, well, do you think she would appreciate me coming over there and just, praying for her? I have this particular gifting from the Lord. Would she appreciate that? And everybody's like, oh, yes, she would love it. Yes, please, just go right on over. Give him the address. He goes over. He's trying to find his way. He's unfamiliar with this place. He's been to Jerusalem before, but he's unfamiliar with this particular place. And so after 45 minutes of looking, they can't find anything because he has somebody driving him around. They can't find anything. And then he's finally like, okay, we must be out of the will of God. Let's just go back to where we came from. I tried my best. Well, they turn the car around, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, there is the address. Oh, look at God. Here's what I have to say to all of us, myself included, because I'm not excluded from this conversation, even though I am settled in my mind about the Lord. When God has something for you, God has something for you. I don't know all the intimate details of how it's going to come, where it's going to come, what it's going to look like. I had a specific dream last night. I'm all over the place, but y'all follow me as best you can. I had a dream last night, and in the dream, to say God had gifted me to a person is the wrong wording, but that's how I felt. Like I was a gift to this particular individual. We were married. But when I looked at this guy, it was not what I had pictured. I just didn't come up with this in my brain. He was not Morris Chestnut fine. I mean, he wasn't even cute in any type of way fine. He was it. There are no words, if you understand. There are just no words to explain what this man looked like. And I could clearly decipher his features. I could see his face. I know exactly what it was. But in the dream, and this is just a dream, in the dream, I resigned myself to the gift that God had given me. It wasn't what I thought it should have been. It didn't come in the package I thought it should have come in. It didn't look like what I have been dreaming in all my life. It just didn't look anything like it. But I said to the Lord, as we were leaving the car and going into the house for the evening or whatever it was, I said, thank you, Lord, for the gift of my spouse. I was so appreciative. And then I woke up. And here's what I believe that the Lord was telling me again. Shakima, what you're praying for, it may not come in the package. It may not look, it may be totally something. You would have never chosen this, but it is the gift that I have for you. And so here again, in this particular chapter where he's talking about Ruth, we get to see that as he went over to pray for her, as he's praying for this woman that he's never met once ever, is seeing her for the first time ever in his life, except that one little blurb on a correspondence. He knows that this is the woman that God has for him to marry. Now, listen, you got to know the Lord for sure to come up with that. You got to know the Lord for real sure to say, you know what? And it wasn't even he wasn't there for hours and hours. He was just there to say, hey, girl, I just want to let you know this is who I am. I was here. They told me you were sick. I came to pray. And all of that quick 30-minute, 45 minutes, hour max exchange. Because when he walked into her apartment, she was laying on the floor because of her back. She wasn't entertaining. She wasn't, up going around and doing stuff. No, that's not what it was. She was simply just resting. He had the ministry of healing, praying for backs, and he went to do that. And he said he knew, looking at this woman, that she was going to be his wife. Now, that's a good part of the story. We can close the book and go home, but it's not that easy. It's not that simple. Remember those guys I talked about in the beginning? Well, he said, even though he knew that the Lord was calling him to join together with this woman, now I got to go clear with those dudes. And so before we get back to those guys, again, he talks about the fact that he prayed for her, he left, and some kind of way they corresponded. And he said, hey, because here's the other thing that I found that was so amazing. Here this woman is, she knows nothing about what God told him, because he didn't say, hey, and by the way, the Lord told me you're going to be my wife. He didn't say any of that to her. He knew it in his brain. And here she is, just like, well, thank you so much for coming to pray. Good to see you. Have a safe trip back to where you're going. Okay, bye. And he calls her. He writes her a letter, and he says, hey, listen, if you're ever in the U.S., let me know. There's a great ministry I'd love for you to check out in Kansas. So she immediately writes back. She says, hey, my daughter and I, we're on our way. We're going to be in Maryland, but we would love to come over to Kansas and talk to do the ministry thing. They meet up. And in their meeting, this is the second time that he's met her in person. The second time, he says he fell in love with her. He was only there for 2 days of her visit because he was on his way to Africa. He was on his way to South Africa to go minister for several weeks, months, whatever. But they had orchestrated and arranged it so that they could see each other for a couple of days before he left. And he fell in love with her. How do you fall in love with somebody that you've only met one time? Now, it can happen. There's shows out here now, Love at First Sight, Married at First Sight. Did you know I was yours at first sight? Sure, I did. It was the first sight, all these things. But in 2025, is that a reality? That's one of the things, again, that you have to know, that you know God, especially if you're trying to do it this way. Now, this is not a conversation for people who don't believe. If you're not a believer in the things of the Lord, I am talking total craziness to you right now. And I get it. I totally get it. I'm not even mad. But this is for the people like me who absolutely have a word of the Lord, and we believe God. 100% I believe the Lord has a person for me. And here's what the Lord told me about my husband. So I can already just tell you that this is a real thing. This exact experience. He said to me, he said, Shakima, your husband will know you're his wife long before you know he's your husband. And God spoke that word to me probably 9 years ago. and I'm still single. He said, he will know you're his wife long before you know he's your husband. I've been waiting for a husband, Lord. What you mean he gonna know before I know? Surely I'm gonna know. Oh no, he gonna know first. And you have to trust God so much that he cares about you and everything you care about, that he's gonna take care and work out the details, that you can leave it alone. After I had the dream last night, looking at the man that I know is not the man that I know, there ain't no way in this entire world that that could be the man. But I looked up to heaven in the dream and I said, Lord, thank you for my husband. Thank you. And we went in the house. That was it. Because I don't have to accept what God sends, but God may not send what I'm expecting either. And I've been praying for God to answer the prayer. So anywho, he's in Africa. He's only met this lady twice. He's in Africa. He's got to leave. He's got some extra money. He can't take the money out of the country. Trying to exchange it back is too much of a process. He went and bought a diamond ring. When somebody is serious about you and they know that God has given them a word for themselves, they're not playing about you. And I've heard men say this. I'm not a man. I try not to stay in men business because it's not for me. But I've heard men say when they knew who their wife was, they knew. You could date somebody for years and years and years and then meet somebody and be married in 3 months. And you like, how did that happen? Because I knew you wasn't it, but I knew she was. I guess that's an intuition type situation. Most of us know as well. I know who is and who ain't. Trust me. But I'm going to trust the Lord in this process. What I had to do was release my control over when, how, who, what, where. Is it him? Is it him? Is it him? I was driving myself bananas trying to figure out all the details. This man has no details except for the fact that this is the woman. That's the only detail he got. And he went and bought the best diamond he could find. And not only did he buy a diamond, but he had a few more coins. So he spent the rest of his money and bought her a nice little brooch or something. He was like, let me take her an extra gift. Can't give it a diamond just yet, but I can give her a gift to let her know I've been thinking about her. Well, they meet again. They meet again in Jerusalem around the Jewish holy holiday, Yom Kippur. And they spend all the week fasting and praying, and he knows for sure that she's the one. So he asked her, he said, listen, I want you to come and meet me for breakfast. And she goes to meet him for breakfast, and he says, I believe, this is now when he's getting ready to tell her, says, I believe that the Lord has called me and you to get married so that we can do something great for the Lord. Now, he had a dream about her as well. He had a dream. You'll have to read the book. You have to read the book. I'm just giving you very brief. And I believe that the Lord is calling you to marry me. He said, but here's the thing that I'm telling you. I can't tell you what you are hearing. I'm just telling you what I heard. You're going to have to go and pray and ask God, is it right for you? So I hear people quite often say, or they have said to people, you're my wife or you're my husband. Now, I've only had one person tell me that, and they didn't exactly say I was their wife. They just said, you the one. Now, this is probably about 3 years ago, and he was about 80, and I blocked him. You blocked, buddy, because God in heaven knows it is not, you're not about to get me out here looking crazy. Oh, no. Right? And she says to him, I already knew what you were going to say, and I knew that if you asked me to marry you, I would marry you. Now, here's what I had to think about in this particular chapter. You have a man and you have a woman. They've only met each other twice. In order for me to know that you're my spouse, I've got to spend a whole lot of time with the Lord to be very clear about where he wants us to go together. And the only way that that's going to happen is if I spend time with the Lord. That's why you hear people say he got to be so into the Lord that he finds me in the Lord, right? I'm so steeped in the Lord. He got to find the Lord to find me because I'm spending time with God. You can't run the okey doke over here talking about the Lord told me you was my wife. Okay, show me the evidence. I need evidence. Because God would not give me as a gift to my husband, and I was not the right kind of wife he needed. Remember, I already had that before. I had that already. So God would not do that to me twice. He wouldn't allow me to do it to me either. Me and God on that kind of level with one another. And so here's the thing, right? So she accepted. And he says, listen, before we can make this official, I got to go back home now because you know about my dudes, right? You know about my group, my accountability group. I got to go back and I got to present this to them because there was a little bit of a sticky situation here. I know somebody on Instagram said they were divorced. When they had met for that week, now they didn't stay together. He stayed somewhere, she stayed in her house, and they just kind of met during the daytime for lunch and breakfast and that kind of thing. They did a lot of talking, and he said, tell me your story. Hey, Miss Alwanda. And she said, you know, she told him the whole story. She happened to be divorced. Well, divorce in Christendom is one of those things that I think has been given such a bad rap. I mean, I can do anything and everything and be forgiven, but I can't be divorced. That's not the Lord. That's people. People, well, God doesn't permit you to be divorced and get remarried. But I can do this, and this, and 14 more things. And he can forgive that. He can't forgive me being divorced. So I have issue with that, right? That's just me. You read your Bible, come to your own understanding. There's an influencer. It just happens to come through my For You page at times where they absolutely are adamant that a woman cannot be divorced. Now, the man can be divorced, but not the woman. You cannot be remarried. Okay, very good. Like how that's working for you, Dr. Phil, but that's not what I'm trying to do. The Lord permits me. God, even if I did something that God did not like, and I asked the Lord for forgiveness, God is such a good God that he would forgive me. So I'm going to live in that. Right? I have the biblical reason to be divorced. The Bible says if an unsaved spouse leaves, let them go. Guess what? Took me 18 years to get there, and that's no shade on him. It is just what it was. We should have never been married in the first place. It takes a real mature person to even say that. We should have never been married. We were good. The only person that I've ever been able to work with, for real work with, and we are like a well-oiled machine is my ex-husband because our work ethics match each other. Our work ethics, we will outwork anybody, both of us. But that's as far as it went. And so I get it, right? So he tells this lady, he says, listen, I got to go back to my guys and let them know, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm hearing the Lord say. And I'm going to get back with you and let you know how it goes. He goes back. He's all excited about marrying this woman. I found my Ruth. I found my Ruth, y'all. And after his friends have heard him out, they said to him, we cannot condone this marriage. We can't sign off on it. We can't give it the seal, deliver this. This ain't the Lord. This not the move right here. Nope. And this man who has had the wind in his sails now has a deflation. Now, let me caution you here again. This is not accountability that's going to tell you everything you do is right. That's not who I'm asking you. Do you have in your life? I'm not asking you to have the nosy people in your business, just the people who want to be in your business just because. Those are not the people either. But you have better know that the people that you have in your corner are who they say they are, that they have a relationship with the Lord, that they are hearing clearly from the Lord. I thought that somebody was it, and I submitted it to somebody, and it was like, Shakima, that ain't it. And trust me, it ain't it, because they ain't even here. And I think accountability for those of us who are so ready to be married or in a relationship, even not even married, because right now we just want to go on a date, right? But sometimes you're not clear in your thinking. Your mind is on some other things and you're not clear. Now, I'm not talking about people who are bitter, who have been in bad relationships. I'm not talking about people who don't like men or who don't like women. They just mad at everybody. Those are not the people. I'm talking about people who genuinely know you and have your best interest. They were thinking of him. He was like, well, what's wrong with her? Well, first of all, she's divorced. And that's going to be a whole nother level of different. You out here, a renowned Bible teacher, and you trying to bring a divorced woman up in here. There are definitely going to be some people who don't like that. That was the conversation he was having with his friends. The second thing is, dude, you travel too much. This woman can't even walk. She can't even sit for long. She bent over with her back issue. How's she going to be a help to you? You're going to be around here with an invalid. How is this going to work? I think that most people that have what, I don't even know what the right term is, disabled relationships. That's what most people feel. If one of the person is able-bodied and somebody else is not able-bodied, they wonder like, how that's going to work. The people who love you. He said, my friends had my best interest at heart, but I had a word of the Lord. So you know what he did? Go ahead and put it in the chat. You know what he did. You know what he did. Put it in the chat, y'all. See if y'all know what he did. He called her because she in Israel. He back over here in the US of A. He called her. He said, listen, my friend said, no, I think that's going to be the it for me. We cannot pursue it any further. Wait a minute, what? Now you met this woman and you knew that God told you to marry her. Then you met her again and you knew for sure God told you to marry her. But your four raggedy little friends told you no and you told her no? He told her no. But again, even though you have those people in your life, he still knew the final authority rests with the Lord. And he said, I'm leaving it here. He had all of the guys write a letter to her so she could get more clear thinking about what was going on and why they felt the way they felt. He gave her the letter. He actually went to Jerusalem, and 2 weeks after that, he was going anyway. So he's like, hey, will you meet me? And she did. And he said, hey, we didn't feel any emotion about it. We just agreed to pray. That brought me to something that I wanted to share with y'all. He said, where was it? I'm going to get to that part where he said, anyway, what it was is he told her, he said, listen, we can't have any further communication. The only communication we can have now is prayer. The only thing we can do is pray. If it's not for prayer, we can't even have any communication. And she agreed to that. I'm gonna pray for you. You're gonna pray for me. And if we need to pray together, we'll do that. But otherwise, honey, we're not, nothing. And they went their own separate ways. He was going to Australia at the time. And when he got to Australia, the Lord gave him a word. He said, things die in the winter, but they're in the fall, but they're always reborn in the spring. And he knew that meant it was going to work its way out. I know that this is the person that God has gifted me. And so I'm going to trust the Lord. He spent a lot of time in prayer when he was away from her. And it brought back to my mind one of the last guys that I actually just talked to. It wasn't even a thing. We were just kind of talking. But he was frustrating me. Because I'm grown, like for real grown. And if you say you're going to call me, I expect that to happen. I just expect it. I don't know. These teenager games that people are playing is not what I do. Look, I don't do it. So if you tell me you're going to call, I expect you to call. If I say I'm going to call, I expect a call from me. If my phone rings and it's you, I'm going to answer my phone because I might not even have my phone on me. I wear my Bluetooth quite a lot. I don't even know who's calling. I just answer the phone. Oh, girl, you're not supposed to answer the first 3 times he calls. You're supposed to, who is playing these games? Like, I don't have any time for this. So I started talking to this one guy, handsome guy, nice person, just an overall nice person, I guess. I mean, I didn't know him very long. Nice person, I would assume. But he would frustrate me. And he would say, hey, I'm going to call you later. And later would be 7 days from now. So I get it. We're not together. It's not a thing. But I got too many things to be doing for every 7th day for you to be calling me. And I'm like, okay. So after about 6 weeks of this foolishness, it was 6 weeks too long. After about 6 weeks of this foolishness, I said to the Lord, because see, I had to take it to God in prayer, because if not, I was going to say some stuff that's going to be unkind, or I was going to keep putting up with foolishness, and I don't have time for that. So I said to the Lord, I said, God, why is this frustrating me? I don't live in frustration. Now, here's the thing, and I think it's very reminiscent of what he was talking about in the book. I'm going to surrender all of this to the Lord. I know you've called this woman to be my wife. I know you gave me a clear direction. She knows you gave us a clear direction so that we could do things that you needed us to do. She is my way, my gateway back into Jerusalem, because that's where she is. And I'm trusting you. We're trusting you for it all. But why am I frustrated? And he went into prayer. So I went into prayer. And this was before I had read this book. I said, Lord, now this is frustrating me. Why? And I kid you not, listen to me. This is again when you have to have a sure relationship with God. God said 90 days. 90 days. And I said, 90 days? What does that mean? He said, I don't want you to talk to this person for 90 days. Now, here's me. Agree quickly with the Lord. I said, okay. That was the first time in 6 weeks I didn't feel frustrated by anybody. I was like, well, very good. Okay, very good. But I had to call him and tell him. And I called him and I said, hey, how are you? Just wanted to let you know the Lord said we can't talk for 90 days. Hey, that's just kind of what the Lord said. And he's like, I'm not in agreement with that. Well, it does not matter what you're in agreement with. I'm telling you what God told me to do, and I'm going to be obedient to the Lord. Now, again, you better make sure you equally yoke with like believers, because some folks is out here trying to figure out where black holes come from. Sir, we are not equally yoked at all. Okay, very good. But I told myself, I said, you know what, Shakima, God has given you a word, and you better either follow it or you're going to be frustrated. I'm a follower. I can't do frustration. It's not my thing. I don't live in frustration. I don't live in stress. I don't live in strife. I don't live in drama. I don't have none of that. God did not give that to me. And if you're gifting it to me, I'm re-gifting it back. I don't want it. And he knew, as I knew in that same moment, that the Lord was going to make it clear what I was supposed to do. And this is the verse that he said. Let me see if I can find the verse that he found. I want to make sure I read it right. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. That was back to the divorced person. Let me move. He says, what dies in the fall will be resurrected in the spring. Period. That's it. I knew in those moments when the Lord told me 90 days to stop. And what I did in that time frame was I wrote a book in 90 days. The 90 days that I didn't talk to that individual, it actually ended up being almost a whole year before I ever talked to him again. I thought 90 days, he going to be calling, honey. He didn't call on the 91st day. He didn't call on the 191st day. I was like, well, darn. But I had clarity from the Lord, and I had peace. As well as what he explained in this chapter. He said, listen, I knew I couldn't talk to her, but I knew it was going to work out. Long story short, after his trip to Australia, he goes back to his friends, and she's going to tell the story a little bit further. He goes back. His friends say, listen, we've heard from God, because not only was he beseeching the Lord, she was praying, and his friends were praying. You better have friends in your corner that pray for you. Again, you don't need busybody friends. I need friends that can pray and fast. I need people who up at 3 a.m. when they hear the Lord say, get up and pray. Them the kind of friends I need, because I'm probably up praying. Honestly, if you're going to walk out, thank you, Holy Spirit, if you're going to walk out the way that this thing is supposed to go for you, and it's lasting until death do us part, I don't need you in my life if you're not going to be beneficial for me. I need friends who are going to support me. I need friends who are going to encourage me, who are going to edify me, who are going to check me. Who going to check me? My friends. Now, not everybody, because we got to be in a relationship for you to try to come over here and check me. Nah, boo. But if the only person that has been with me through every single thing I've been through is my sister. And I'm telling you, when I have laid on her lap and snotted and cried, and she has dried up my tears and all that, no, she gonna tell me, Shakima, I don't think that's the right one. Whatever she gotta say. But if I call her and I say, hey, I need you to pray, she own it. She own it. Those are the types of individuals that you need in your life. And when he heard that word from the Lord, What dies in the fall is resurrected in the spring. He knew it was already settled in heaven. Now it's going to unfold in the natural. It's already settled in the spirit. How it's going to unfold in the natural is not my business. He just knew that it was settled. And he goes on further to say that in I think it was 73. Did he say 73 or 79? I can't remember, but one of those years, they got married. What year? 78. April of 78. They announced they were engaged and they got married in October. So they didn't even have a long engagement. From April till October, April's the 4th month, October's the 10th month, 6 months. Listen, I don't have a long time for you to figure out if I'm the one. If you know I'm the one, let's move along. We can move along. And here's what he said. And every objective that his friends had, she's divorced and she is an invalid. They were so concerned for him. They didn't know her. They were concerned for him. And here's what he says about this woman. He said, my ministry was going very well. But when I married her, he said, we began to have such a platform. They were on the radio back then. He said, we began to have such a platform when I married her that I knew it was from the Lord. He said, I was preaching and people were hearing the message all across the globe that had never heard the message before. Here's the thing. Just this past week, I was having some issues in my own life thinking, who wants to hear anything I got to say? Most of y'all have never heard me. I just popped up on your For You page and you're like, hey, what's this crazy girl talking about? Let me see what she got to say. You pop in, you pop. And I kept saying to my Lord, am I supposed to be in the ministry? Now, I'm licensed in South Carolina. I'm ordained in North Carolina. I have my actual ordination papers. I carry around my license in my wallet. I carry it. I have my paperwork that says I'm qualified to do this, and I have the call of the Lord. But here I am wondering, is anybody wanting to hear what I have to say? And he comes back and affirms it. When I married this woman, my influence, for lack of a better word, my reach went viral. I guess that's the right terms for today's words. It went viral. I was doing okay. I had some followers, I had some people, they were following and everything was good. As soon as I connected to the right person, as soon as we connected and joined our life together, I went viral. Couldn't happen without her. I needed her to go viral. And here's the thing. Nobody knew her. She wasn't anybody. I'm somebody. I'm the renowned Bible teacher. Who is she? But together, they were a force to be reckoned with. He goes on to tell how they would preach. He would preach for a couple hours and then they would pray for hours and hours and hours with people. Do you not know that you have to have the right type of person that can withstand your travel schedule, that can withstand praying for people? I got a ministry to pray for backs and she can't even stand up. The Lord supernaturally, miraculously healed her. Where she was walking bent over, she was now upright. And she could stand with her husband for hour and hour and hour and hour to pray for people. You had better know, I had better know, Shakir, this is for me, not for you. I'm just saying you, but I mean me. Had better know that the one that God sends is the one that God was supposed to send. And he says in here, he says, he talks about the ministry being long and arduous and going from this place to that. He says, in such situations, Ruth has foreseen my needs more quickly than I, and invariably contrived amazingly ingenious ways to supply them. Every need he ever has, before he even has it, she's already contemplated it. And she has made sure that her man is taken care of. My man, my man, my man. Okay? She is here for him. He says in other areas too, such as management, creative writing, God has equipped Ruth with skills that meet needs I did not even know would arise. Again and again, I marvel at how her abilities complement mine, just as a glove fits a hand. Once again, as in my first marriage, God had provided me with a helper suitable for me. I am determined 100% not to ever get myself in a situation where I'm with somebody that says to me, you're not the right type of wife I need, because I know that the giftings that I have are for someone. They're not for everyone, but they are for someone. So here's what I'm saying. I want this example. I want, when I get with my husband, I want him to say, oh my God, I didn't even know I needed that. And you did what I needed done, because that's what God put in me. God put the abilities in me that are going to complement my husband. We're never going to compete with each other. I had somebody tell me one time, I don't think you want to be married to a pastor. I said, well, why is that? He said, because y'all would compete against each other. Well, the Lord gave me a very clear word. He said, Shakima, you are not the set man. You are the set man's helper. Boom, there it is. He can be whoever God wants him to be. He can be a pastor if that's what God has, because God already told me I am not the number one. I'm the number two. Not to be confused with inferior. I am just helping the number one. That's a word that God gave me. And I'm going to hold that thing so deep to my heart, so close to my heart, because I know the Lord. And when I begin to read somebody else's story and you're able to hear how they went through issues, we would think because he's a world-renowned teacher that he wouldn't have had any problems finding somebody. Well, his friend said no. And he did say in the book, well, I'm not married to none of them. I can get out of this group if I want to, but I made a commitment to them, just like they made a commitment to me. So what that told me is he didn't even take friendships for granted. Here I am just taking friendships for granted whenever, I'll be your friend as it is convenient for me. No, this is not convenient for any of us, because I feel the Lord telling me something and I'm going to need you to pray just like I'm praying. I'm going to need you to turn your plate down. But it's Sunday dinner. What you mean I got to give up my fried chicken and my collard greens? I need you to turn your plate down. I need you to be praying. I need to clearly hear from the Lord, because I know what he told me. These are the types of people. These are the situations. He's just like the rest of us, going through situations. But once the Lord gives you a peace that passes all understanding, all you can do is say, thank you, Lord, and move on. What dies in fall resurrects in the spring. I thought for sure I was going to see that guy again, that we were going to be together. Oh, I'm cute. He cute. It should all work out. I didn't have anything that he needed, and he definitely didn't have anything that I needed. Nothing. And we're still good people. We just weren't the right people for each other. Well, ain't you mad? Don't you feel some type of way? I don't feel any type of way. I am thankful that the Lord stopped what would have been a bad decision. That would have been a train that would have jumped the tracks, and it would have been a hot, boiling ghetto express mess. No, ma'am. Well, you're still single. I am. And I'm happy about it. I have learned to be content in the space that I am in, whether I have it or don't. Thank you, Paul. I feel great. But I'm growing every day. I'm getting better every day. I'm self-reflecting every day. I'm working on me every day. I'm working on my skill set every day. Why? So that when my husband comes, he will find me ready and able and willing to go where he want to go. Many people say, Shakima, are you going to move when you get married? I'll move tomorrow if the Lord told me. You don't think for 1 minute that I am stuck, attached to nothing in this house. God said, when your husband comes for you, give everything away. He said, don't take nothing with you. Your clothes and the dog. That's it. He said, where I am, see, you got to hear the Lord. Where I am sending you, I've already made provision for you. That's the Lord. Shakima didn't come up with that. I have already packed up all this stuff I've packed too many times to not know how to pack. God said, don't take nothing, your clothes and the dog. And he said, if he don't want you to take your clothes, leave them too, because where I'm taking you, I've already made provision for you. Thank you, Holy Spirit. That's for me. That may not be for anybody else, but he got the woman. They got each other. Now what comes after that? In the next chapter or the next section, because I think that was the last of part 1, we're going into part 2 that talks about the divine pathway to marriage. He's got the woman now. Now, how do we stay married? Right? Because everybody wants the marriage. I get it. I want the wedding day too. I never wore a white dress. I plan to wear one. And it's going to be cute because I'm over here doing all the exercise. I'm about to get on this step in about 5 minutes. But I want all of that. But more than I want the wedding, I want the marriage. How am I going to connect my life to this man? How am I going to connect to maybe possible children that he has, his family, his work, his ministry, all the things that he has going on for him? How do I fit into all of that? I want the marriage. How do we deal with conflict? How do we deal with my decision versus his decision? How do we deal with money? How do we deal with intimacy? I want the marriage, because your marriage is not the wedding. That's just the beginning of it. My son got his first degree black belt. I think Jackson probably was about 9 or 10 years old when he became a first degree black belt. And the master over the program said that when you get the black belt, this doesn't mean anything. He says, now you got to earn it. Now you got to work for it. Just getting it, that's nothing. Getting married, I'm not saying it's nothing, but I mean, it's the first leg of it. Staying married is the goal. Till death do us part. I make a covenant. You make a covenant. I make a commitment. When it's hard, fine. We can do hard things. So in this next part 2, he's going to talk about how to stay married. And again, let me just free everybody. If this is not your jam, you can chime out. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all. However, you get to decide what you want for your life. You get to decide how you want your story to be told. You get to decide what your children see. I get to decide what my children see. My 2 oldest children saw what they saw in my marriage. My youngest son has never seen me be married at all. His dad left when he was 4 months old. He's never seen marriage. So I better get it right, because he's not sure he wants to be married. He wants to be married. He just doesn't know if he wants legal paperwork. He's like, Mom, but what is that? Because he's never seen it. So I better get it right so that he can see what marriage really is and can be, so that he'll have an opportunity to show his children, because you're not bringing children up in here and you didn't commit. I'm not taking my whatever she is, baby mama, mother of my grandchildren, to the courthouse to take you down for child support. No, we're making a commitment here. But my children have never seen it. So God has given me a do-over. I get a do-over, and I'm going to do it right this next time. I promise myself. Again, will it be hard? It could be, but I just don't foresee marriage being hard. I don't plan to be hard. I don't plan to be hard to get along with. I'm not going to do everything, just go along to get along. I'm going to have a voice, and I have words, but I don't plan marriage to be hard. I rather enjoyed it when I was married. All right, y'all, there it is. Like the video, share, subscribe, do all the things. Okay. We'll be back next Sunday. We're going into part 2, which is, let me just tell you one more time, the divine pathway to marriage. And we're going to talk about the getaway. In part 4 of chapter 4, he talks about the getaway. I do hope to see you. Please share this with somebody that you know is desirous of marriage. Let's get it right this time. There's too many single women and too many single men, too many good women and too many good men out here single. And I have a question, like, why are we all single? What are we waiting for? But I firmly believe that the Lord is already speaking to my husband about me. I thank you, Lord, that he would dream of me all the time. Can he just dream Shakima? Please just let him dream me right here, right here, right here. And I know that it's him. All right, you guys, I got to go. I got to get on the stepper. I got to get my 45 minutes in, because 30 minutes of movement in March is a thing. I am doing all the things. Join me for that if you haven't. Join me for 30 minutes of movement in March. And in April, we're doing something totally different. I don't know what we're doing yet, but we are getting our bodies in order, because when he comes, we want to be well able for all of the things that come after the wedding, the honeymoon. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to see you next time. Bye, y'all. I know that's, oh, child, listen, too many married single women. You're right about that. So we're going to have to figure it out in Jesus' name. I love you guys. See y'all later. Bye now.